The Broken Alliance. The galaxy was full of stars and empires, but behind all the bright lights there was fear and politics. The Galactic Council was old, powerful, and proud. They believed they ruled every voice in the galaxy, but not all races trusted the Council. Some believed the Council was cruel. Among those who stood tall were the Valorans, noble allies of Earth. The Valorans were warriors once, but after centuries of war, they chose peace. They believed friendship was stronger than fear, and so they offered their hand to humanity. Together, Valoran and human scientists built trade, technology, and even shared fleets. It was a friendship that frightened the Council. The Council did not like strong alliances outside their control. Whispers spread that the Valorans were preparing to make humans equal members that would give Earth power, influence, and a seat at the table. The alien rulers in the council chamber laughed in public, but behind closed doors they planned. They told themselves that peace with humans was dangerous, that humans were too young, too wild, too ambitious, and worst of all, they saw the Valorans as traitors. The council decided in secret that both Earth and Valoran unity must be broken, but they chose the Valorans first. They believed humans would never have the strength to fight without their old allies. The first attack came without warning. It was a cold night on Valoran Prime when the stars turned red. The council fleets emerged from hyperspace. Thousands of warships. Civilians looked up from their cities as the sky burned. Valoran scrambled to defend themselves, but they were not ready. For generations they had trusted the treaties. They had trusted peace. But the council showed no mercy. Orbital bombardments rained fire on the oceans and mountains. Cities were turned to ash in minutes. The once proud Valoran fleets fought back, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Earth's deep space listening posts caught fragments of transmissions, distress signals. Full of fear and fire, one Valoran captain cried out, "Tell the humans, we stood until the end." Another voice screamed, "Protect our children. Do not forget us." Then silence. By the time Earth's navy reached Valoran space, it was too late. The planets were nothing but smoke and rubble. Billions of Valorans were gone. The few survivors were hunted across the stars, chased like prey. The Council declared victory. They announced to the galaxy that the Valorans were guilty of rebellion. They called it justice, but the truth was massacre. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Screens showed images of burning Valoran cities. People filled the streets in grief and rage. Children cried for the friends they would never see again. Teachers told their students that the galaxy was not fair. In homes and halls there was silence and then fury. The people of Earth did not forgive. The loss of the Valorans was not only the death of an ally, it was the murder of family. For humanity had fought side by side with the Valorans in the past. They had shared blood and sacrifice. Now that bond had been broken by fire. In the Council chambers of Earth, leaders argued. Some said humanity was too weak to fight the Galaxy Council. Others said that silence would only invite more attacks. The admirals of Earth spoke firmly. They reminded the leaders of what was hidden in the dark, for while the galaxy mocked Earth, humanity had been preparing. Old wars on Earth had taught bitter lessons. Humans knew that peace was fragile. They had built fleets in silence, ships that the Council did not know existed, and now, with the Valorans gone, those fleets waited like clenched fists. In the ruins of Valoran Prime, a single distress beacon continued to send its signal. No one in the galaxy cared to listen. But one night the signal reached Earth. The words were faint, broken but powerful. "Do not forget us," the voice whispered. Every man, woman, and child on Earth heard those words. It was not just a message, it was a promise of vengeance, and as the stars looked down coldly, humanity made its choice. The broken alliance would be remembered, and in the shadows, the drums of war began to beat. Earth in mourning, humanity in fury. The destruction of the Valoran worlds was not just news, it was a wound that cut deep into every human heart. On Earth, people gathered in city squares to watch the broken images of burning Valoran skies. There were no words, only silence. And then, anger began to rise. Children carried flowers to memorials. Parents lit candles in the night. Everywhere, one question echoed. Why did the Council do this? The answer was clear. The Council feared unity. The Council feared friendship. And for that, they killed. The leaders of Earth met in secret chambers, their faces pale, their voices tense. Some leaders begged for caution, saying humanity was not ready to fight the entire galaxy. Others slammed, their fists, saying silence would only invite more death. The military admirals listened quietly, and then one of them spoke. "We cannot bring back the Valorans," he said, "but we can make sure they are not forgotten." In those words, a decision was born. The Council believed Earth's fleets were small and scattered. They thought humanity was still weak, still crawling in the dust of the stars. But they did not know the truth. For decades, humans had built in silence, hidden in the asteroid belts, in the shadows of gas giants, in secret shipyards under icy moons. The greatest warships of humanity waited, engines cold but ready, thousands of vessels, crafted with lessons from Earth's bloody history, built not for defense but for survival. And now those silent warships would rise. In the streets of Earth, grief turned into fury. Factories that once built cargo ships were turned overnight into weapon forges. Workers volunteered to Labor Day, and night, engineers poured every ounce of skill into new designs. Young men and women lined up at recruiting stations. They did not ask for money or glory. They asked only to fight. The memory of Valoran voices burned in their hearts. "Do not forget us," the survivors had said, and humanity swore they never would. The Council's spies tried to watch, but they saw only what humans allowed them to see. Old ships in public docks, small fleets on routine patrols. To the outside galaxy, Earth looked weak and quiet. But beneath the surface, something dark was growing. A storm hidden in silence. Whispers spread in the underground channels of the galaxy. Rumors said humanity was building a secret armada. Council officials laughed at the rumors, calling them foolish lies. But in their private rooms they could not sleep easily. One night, far beyond Mars, a fleet of human warships drifted silently from the shadows, their hulls black, their weapons cold, their crews silent. This was not a drill. This was not training. This was the first step of vengeance. Families of the fallen Valorans were invited aboard some ships, not to fight, but to witness, to carry memory into battle. They stood on the decks as human commanders promised. "Your people are not forgotten, your blood is ours, and we will strike back." Tears filled their eyes, but behind the tears there was fire. Meanwhile, on distant colonies people prepared. Farmers left their fields. Miners abandoned the rocks. They dug. They all answered one call, the call of vengeance. On the moon Titan, engineers whispered to each other as they tested massive weapons. On Europa, children painted the Valoran emblem on walls. Across Earth's nations, every voice spoke the same words: "We are not afraid anymore." The Galaxy Council, arrogant and blind, believed Earth would bow. They believed humans would stay silent, broken by grief. But Earth was not silent. Earth was listening. Earth was planning. In the shadows of space, the fleets grew. In the hearts of humans, the fury grew. And from that fury came resolve, the resolve to strike. The admirals of Earth gathered in the war room. A great table glowed with maps of stars. Every council stronghold was marked in red. The admirals spoke in calm voices, but behind their eyes was fire. "This is not war for conquest," one said. "This is war for memory," another added. "We will not stop until the galaxy remembers what they did to the Valorans." Silence filled the room, and then one word was spoken: revenge. And so, humanity's path was set. The people grieved, but in their grief, they found strength. The leaders hesitated, but in their hesitation, they found resolve. The fleets slept in the shadows, but in their silence they waited, and when the time came they would wake. They would wake with fire, and the galaxy would tremble. The Council's arrogance. In the shining halls of the Galaxy Council, the rulers gathered. The chamber was vast, filled with golden light. Banners of hundreds of species hung from the walls. Here, the galaxy's most powerful voices decided the fate of countless worlds. And now their voices were filled with laughter. They laughed at the news of Valoran destruction. They laughed at the grief of humanity. They laughed because they believed they had won. One elder of the council, a scaled creature with sharp eyes, raised his hand and spoke. The humans are loud but weak. They cry for their lost allies, but they will do nothing. Another delegate, with wings folded tight, hissed in agreement. Without the Valorans, humans are children. Their fleets are small, their spirit is broken. The chamber echoed with amusement. No one there believed humanity could ever challenge them. Reports from spies told them that Earth had done little, that humans were building weapons, but only in small numbers. The council dismissed the rumors of secret fleets as foolish tales. They build transports, not warships, said one commander. They hide behind words of peace. They cannot face us in open space. The chamber cheered, their arrogance rising higher. But deep inside, some voices were less certain. Quiet. Reports spoke of human colonies working day and night, of strange signals from the Kuiper Belt, of warships that never appeared on official docks. Yet these warnings were buried under laughter. While the council celebrated, humanity was silent. Silence was a weapon the council did not understand. Humans did not roar yet. Humans did not show their fists yet. They waited, they built, and they remembered. A young alien aide, nervous and trembling, approached the council chamber with a report. He whispered that scouts near Mars had seen fleets moving in shadows, that an entire squadron had vanished near Neptune, but his voice was drowned by the laughter of his superiors. Humans cannot even feed all their people, they mocked. How could they feed fleets? The aide lowered his head, but inside, fear grew. In the lower levels of the council palace, soldiers whispered. They heard stories of human ships testing weapons never seen before, of cannons that could shatter moons, of stealth drives that let ships move like ghosts. But when they told their commanders, they were silenced. Fear is weakness, the commanders said, and humans are nothing but prey. Meanwhile, on Earth, the admirals watched the council broadcasts with cold eyes. They saw the laughter. They heard the insults. They did not answer. They did not defend themselves. They simply planned. Every word of arrogance was fuel for their fire. Every insult became another reason for vengeance. On Valoran ruins, survivors hid in caves and tunnels. They listened to council propaganda on stolen radios. The council called them rebels, criminals, traitors. But the survivors whispered among themselves. They think humans are broken. They do not know humans. And in the darkness, they prayed for Earth to come. The arrogance of the council grew so strong they even mocked in public speeches. One broadcast was shown across the stars. A council leader raised his hands and declared, "Let humans cry for their lost pets. The galaxy will not bow to weak children." Crowds of aliens cheered. But somewhere, hidden deep in space, a human captain watched the broadcast. He turned to his crew and said quietly, "Mark his words, one day he will eat them." In the following weeks, the council tightened its grip on weaker species. They believed their show of strength had silenced. All resistance trade routes were taxed heavily. Colonies were forced into tribute. Fear spread across the stars, but humans did not bow. They watched, they waited, and they sharpened their swords in silence. Late one night, in the council's military chamber, a nervous strategist studied reports. He saw missing patrols, strange signals, sudden silence in border regions. He turned to his superior and said, "Something is moving in the dark. I think it is the humans." The superior laughed and closed the report. "Do not fear shadows. Humans are nothing but shadows." But the strategist could not sleep, for in the back of his mind he saw the image of a fleet waiting like a storm on the horizon, and so, the arrogance of the council grew higher, their laughter grew louder, but the stars were changing, and in those stars, humanity's armada was awakening, silent, patient, and ready to strike. Shadows of war, the first strikes came like whispers. In the night, a council supply convoy traveling between distant colonies vanished without a trace. The escorts reported nothing, the signals went silent, and then the stars swallowed them whole. When rescue teams arrived, they found only wreckage drifting in the void. Hull fragments were twisted as if by invisible claws. Engines melted, weapons shattered, crews gone. The Council blamed pirates, but in their hearts, they feared something more. Weeks later, another outpost near the Galactic Rim went dark. Its defenses had been strong, its fleet well armed. Yet when patrol ships returned, the outpost was gone, not conquered, not occupied, simply gone. Its command tower had been split in two. The Council officials inspected the ruins. They found strange scorch marks unlike any known weapon. Whispers spread. It was the humans. But the Council still laughed, telling themselves humans could not strike so deep. On Earth, the admirals watched quietly. Every strike was planned with cold precision. Every attack was chosen not to win glory but to spread fear. Human fleets moved like shadows. They appeared where no one expected, then vanished before the enemy could react. Alien traders began to murmur. They said human warships were ghosts, that they appeared from nowhere, struck like lightning, and disappeared into the dark. One Valoran survivor, rescued from a Council prison ship, was taken to a hidden human fleet. When she first saw the warships, her breath caught in her chest. They were vast, armored giants, black as night, their hulls marked with the emblems of Earth, dozens, hundreds, thousands stretching into the distance. She whispered, "You built all this in silence." The human commander nodded. "We learned long ago, silence is a shield." Tears filled her eyes, but for the first time since the fall of her people she smiled, for she knew vengeance was coming. As more Council fleets vanished, panic began to creep through the halls of power, commanders argued. Some claimed the humans were behind, yet others shouted that such a thing was impossible. Reports showed supply lines cut, colonies isolated, patrols missing. And still the Council laughed. But the laughter sounded thinner now, weaker. For every week, new ghosts appeared in their records. And every ghost had a human face in the deep reaches of the Kuiper Belt. The truth was revealed. There, hidden in shadows of ice and rock, a vast armada waited. 12,000 human warships stood silent, their hulls dark, their weapons armed. No other species in the galaxy had ever seen such a force. Each ship carried weapons designed not for defense but for annihilation. Rail cannons that could split moons, missiles that could crack planets, engines built for speed and stealth. This was not the fleet of a weak species. This was the fleet of a predator. And now the predator was awake. One by one the fleets moved outward. Some struck small targets to test weapons. Others circled Council strongholds, waiting. Every strike left the galaxy more unsettled. Alien merchants whispered to each other, "If the Council can be struck, then none of us are safe." Fear spread faster than light. The Council tried to silence it with propaganda. They called humans liars. They called humans weak. But even their own soldiers began to doubt. In a secret chamber of the Council, one commander spoke with fear. "They move too quickly, they strike too hard, no pirate can do this, only humans." The others dismissed him. But in his eyes, there was truth, for he had seen the ruins, and he had seen the mark of human weapons, marks that no alien fleet could have made. Back on Earth, the people waited. They listened to the reports of vanished fleets and broken outposts. Every word was a balm to their grief, for every strike meant one step closer to vengeance. Children whispered stories of human ghosts flying between stars. Fathers told their families that the Valorans were not forgotten. Mothers lit candles for the dead and prayed for the living warriors. The whole of humanity was united, not by fear but by fury. And still the Council did not see. They thought the shadows were small. They thought the ghosts would fade. But in the darkness, the war had already begun. The shadows were not fading, they were growing. And soon they would no longer strike in silence. Soon they would strike in fire. Firestorm of vengeance. The first open strike came without warning. At the edge of Council territory, a fortress world guarded the main trade routes. Its defenses were legendary, layered with shields, fleets, and orbital cannons. For centuries, no enemy had dared to challenge it. But one night the stars above the fortress shifted. From the void emerged the black hulls of Earth's warships. They did not announce themselves, they did not send demands, they simply opened fire. The fortress shields lit up like suns under the first barrage. Human rail cannons roared, slamming metal slugs the size of towers into the shields. The ground shook. The sky split. Council defenders scrambled to respond, but their ships were slow, their tactics outdated. Human warships moved like wolves, striking in perfect coordination. Within minutes, the Council fleets guarding the fortress were torn apart. The defenders sent desperate calls for reinforcements, but no help came. By dawn, the fortress world was nothing but smoke and silence. News spread across the galaxy faster than light. For the first time in history, the Council had lost a fortress world. Traders gasped, soldiers whispered, and civilians trembled. Who could have done this? The answer came soon after. Earth released a broadcast across the stars. The face of a human admiral appeared on screens in every system. His eyes were cold, his voice steady. "You slaughtered our Valoran allies," he said. "Now you will feel the fire of Earth." The Council's laughter ended that day. Fear replaced it. Their leaders shouted in anger, but their words shook. With doubt, they had mocked humanity for being weak. But now humanity was strong, stronger than they ever imagined. More strikes followed. Human fleets attacked shipyards, breaking the Council's production lines. They burned fuel depots, destroyed supply chains, shattered relay stations. Entire sectors went dark as human warships struck with precision. The Council tried to send larger fleets, but against every fleet they sent, humanity answered with fire. Council admirals panicked. Their tactics failed. They had trained for wars against predictable enemies. But humans were not predictable. They moved too fast, struck too hard, and never fought the same way twice. On one Council moon, a massive fleet gathered. They believed their numbers would overwhelm any human force, but humanity did not fight them in orbit. Instead, from millions of kilometers away, Earth's fleets fired planet-cracking rail cannons. The moon split apart, its crust shattered, its core exposed. The entire fleet was buried in fire and rock. The galaxy watched in horror. Humanity had not only defeated the Council fleet, they had erased a world. The Valoran survivors who saw the news wept, not in despair, but in fierce joy. They whispered to each other, "The humans remember us. The humans fight for us." For the first time since the massacre, hope returned to their hearts. Across the galaxy, smaller species began to whisper, if humans could strike the mighty Council, perhaps the Council was not invincible. Perhaps the galaxy did not belong to the old powers anymore. Perhaps it was changing. The Council tried to silence these whispers with fear, but fear no longer worked because now humanity was the storm. In the Council chamber, leaders shouted at each other. One slammed his claws against the table. "They were supposed to be weak. How did they destroy our fleet so easily?" Another hissed. "They hid their strength. They tricked us." Panic spread even among the most arrogant voices. For now they knew humanity had never been weak. Humanity had only been waiting. Back on Earth, the people watched the victories with grim pride. No one cheered wildly, for they knew the cost of war. But in every home, in every street, there was fire in their eyes. They had promised not to forget the Valorans. And now every strike was proof of that promise. The war was no longer fought in silence. The shadows had given way to fire. And everywhere, the fire spread. The galaxy trembled. The Council had unleashed their cruelty on the Valorans, but in doing so, they had awakened something they could not control. They had awakened the fury of Earth, and that fury was only beginning the fall of the Council. The Galaxy Council was desperate. Their fortress worlds had fallen, their fleets were shattered, their people were whispering of fear. For the first time in centuries, their rule was shaking, and so, they gathered the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. From every corner of Council space came warships, millions of vessels, titans of metal stretching across the stars, battlecruisers larger than cities, swarms of fighters like metal locusts. In the black of space, the fleet looked endless. The Council commanders stood proud. They believed numbers would crush humanity. They believed sheer size would break the human will. But they did not understand. Humanity was not afraid of size. Humanity was not afraid of numbers. Humanity had been forged in struggle. and struggle had taught them to fight smarter, faster, harder. The human fleets gathered as well. From Earth, from Mars, from Titan, from the Kuiper Belt. 12,000 warships stood ready, their hulls black, their weapons armed, their crews silent. They were smaller in number, but they were united in purpose. Every ship carried not only weapons but memory. The memory of Valoran screams, the memory of burning cities, the memory of betrayal, and in their hearts, they carried fury. The battlefield was chosen at the edge of a dying star. Its red light bathed the fleets in blood. On one side, the endless Council armada, on the other, the silent human warships. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the silence broke. The Council fleet fired first. Millions of weapons lit up the void, rivers of plasma, storms of missiles, beams of burning light. The space between the two armadas became fire, but when the flames cleared, the human fleet was still standing. Their shields glowed bright, their formations unbroken. And then, humanity struck back. Rail cannons thundered, each shot like a mountain hurled across the stars. Missiles screamed through the void, cutting through layers of Council defenses. Stealth squadrons appeared behind enemy lines, tearing apart carriers before they could launch their fighters. The Council's endless numbers turned into chaos. Their formations broke, their command signals jammed. Everywhere they looked, human warships were striking. It was as if the humans had read every move before it happened. In the middle of the storm, the Valoran survivors fought beside humanity. Their small fleet, patched together from stolen ships, flew with vengeance in their hearts. They carried the banner of their fallen people. And when Council ships saw that banner, their crews trembled, for it was proof the Valorans still lived, and they were not alone. The battle raged for hours. Worlds nearby shook under the fury of weapons. Stars themselves seemed to tremble. Council commanders screamed orders, but their voices were drowned in the chaos. Their fleets, once proud and endless, now burned in every corner of space. And then, when the battle was at its peak, a shadow moved across the stars. From hyperspace emerged Earth's greatest warship, the flagship Eternal Resolve. It was larger than anything the Council had ever seen. A fortress of steel and fire carrying weapons that no alien mind could imagine. The moment it appeared, the tide of battle changed. Its cannons tore through the heart of the Council fleet. Its missiles burned entire squadrons to ash. Its presence alone broke the courage of enemy crews. Council admirals tried to rally. They screamed for their fleets to hold, but the fleets no longer listened. Ships fled, ships surrendered, ships exploded in fire. The great armada of the Council was no more. It died in screams and silence, and in its place stood humanity, unbroken, unstoppable. When the last Council flagship fell, silence returned to the battlefield. Wreckage drifted like broken bones. Flames flickered across the void. And in that silence, a human voice spoke across every channel. "This is Earth," the Admiral declared. "The Council's reign of cruelty ends today." Every survivor heard it. Every corner of the galaxy trembled, for the old order was broken, and a new power had risen. The fall of the Council was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same. Revenge and legacy. The battlefield was silent at last. Where once millions of ships had filled the void, now only wreckage drifted. Broken hulls spun slowly, flames flickered out, and the stars shone coldly above. The Council armada, the pride of the galaxy, was gone. In its place stood humanity's fleets, scarred but unbroken. Across every human warship the crews stood in silence. They looked at the ruins. They remembered the Valorans. And then a single voice broke the silence. The Admiral of Earth's flagship, Eternal Resolve, opened a channel to the entire galaxy. His voice was calm, steady, and filled with fire. "You massacred our Valoran allies," he said. "You thought humanity would bow. You thought silence meant weakness. But today you have learned silence was strength." His words carried across the stars. Every world, every colony, every station heard them. He raised his hand, and behind him a flag unfurled. Not only the flag of Earth, but the Valoran crest stitched beside it. "These were our friends," he said. You tried to erase them, but we will carry their name forever. Their memory will never burn out. On ships across the fleet, humans and Valorans together raised the same banner. The galaxy saw it, and the galaxy trembled. In the council chamber, survivors watched the broadcast with pale faces. Their arrogance was gone, replaced by fear. Some begged for peace. Others tried to deny what had happened. But no one listened to them anymore, for the council's power was broken. Their fleets gone, their fear lost, their rule shattered, and their enemies were no longer weak. They were strong and they were human. The Valoran survivors wept when they heard humanity's words. For the first time since their home burned, they felt hope. They stood among humans as brothers and sisters. Together they lit torches. Together they sang songs of memory. The Valorans knew their people had not been forgotten. They knew their blood had not been spilled in vain. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Small nations who once bowed to the council now looked to Earth. Merchants spoke of human warships moving like storms. Farmers told their children that the council was no longer master of the stars. And rebels, long crushed under council rule, began to rise again. They painted the human banner on their walls. They called humanity the avengers of the oppressed, and they waited for the day the humans would arrive at their worlds. But Earth did not claim conquest. The admirals of humanity made their message clear. This war is not for domination. They declared, this war is for justice, for memory, for those who cannot speak. It was a promise that echoed everywhere, and because of that promise, the galaxy began to believe. Still, the shadows whispered of danger. Though the council had fallen, not all their allies were gone far away. In hidden corners of the galaxy, other powers watched, some with fear, some with envy. They saw humanity's strength, and they asked themselves a question. If humans could destroy the council, what else could they destroy? And so in the dark, new plans began to form. But for now, humanity stood victorious. On Earth, the people gathered under the open sky. They lit fires for the Valorans. They built statues in their honor. Children laid flowers at the base of memorials, and parents whispered the same words to them. Do not forget. For memory was not just pain, it was power. The Valorans had been lost, but their spirit lived on, and humanity had carried that spirit into the stars. As the fleets returned home, battered but proud, songs rose from every ship. Not songs of triumph, but songs of remembrance. They sang for the Valorans, they sang for the fallen, and their voices carried across the void. The galaxy listened, and the galaxy remembered. The broken alliance was not broken after all. It lived in banners, in blood and fire, in memory. And though the council had fallen, humanity's journey was only beginning. For in the silence of the stars, whispers grew. Whispers that humanity was no longer just a world, no longer just a people. They were a force, and a force like that could not be ignored. And so, the story of vengeance became the story of legacy. The Valorans were gone, but their name burned brighter than ever. And beside that name, humanity stood, fierce and eternal. Together, they had changed the galaxy. And the galaxy would never forget.